The night the Alpha King claimed what was his. She wasn't supposed to be in his office. She definitely wasn't supposed to see what was hidden behind that blood-red curtain. But the moment Arya crossed that threshold, her life as she knew it shattered into 1,000 irreparable pieces. Because what she discovered wasn't just the Alpha King's secret, it was the truth about herself. A truth so dangerous, so forbidden, that it would either crown her a queen or bury her 6 feet under. And judging by the way King Damian was looking at her right now, with those obsidian eyes that promised both salvation and damnation, she had about 30 seconds to decide which fate she preferred. Welcome to my channel, Crownfire Tales. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel because this story of betrayal, forbidden love, and ultimate revenge is about to take you on a ride you'll never forget. The mistake that started everything. 24 hours earlier, Arya Winters had been invisible. At 23, she'd mastered the art of blending into the marble walls of the Silvermoon Palace, where she worked as a low-ranking archivist. Her job was simple: catalog old documents, stay out of the way, and never, ever speak unless spoken to. She was human in a world ruled by werewolves. That alone made her less than nothing. But invisibility had its advantages. It meant she could move through the palace unnoticed, listening to whispered conversations, observing the political games that played out in shadowed corners. It meant she'd learned things, dangerous things, about the people who held power. Arya. Marcus, the head archivist, barked from across the dimly lit library. He was a weaselly man with thinning hair and a permanent scowl. The king's private office. Top floor, West Wing. There's a collection of treaties from the War of Fangs that need to be retrieved and catalogued. You have 1 hour. Arya's stomach dropped. Sir, I thought no one was allowed in the king's private. Did I ask for your thoughts? Marcus sneered, his yellowed teeth showing. His Majesty is attending the council summit in the Northern Territories. He won't be back until tomorrow night. Now move before I find someone more competent. The threat hung in the air. Jobs at the palace were coveted, especially for humans. Lose this position, and Arya would be back on the streets of the lower district, fighting for scraps. She grabbed her leather satchel and headed toward the West Wing, her heart hammering against her ribs. Crossing the forbidden threshold. The king's office was located at the pinnacle of the palace, accessible only by a private elevator that required a keycard. Marcus had grudgingly provided one, along with explicit instructions: in and out. Touch nothing except the treaties. They're in the cabinet behind his desk. The elevator ascended with agonizing slowness. Arya watched the floor numbers climb, each ding echoing in the cramped space. When the doors finally slid open, she stepped into a corridor unlike anything she'd seen in the palace. The walls were covered in dark mahogany paneling, illuminated by sconces that cast dancing shadows. Portraits of previous Alpha Kings lined the hallway, their painted eyes seeming to follow her as she walked. At the end of the corridor stood a set of double doors, black oak reinforced with silver engravings of wolves mid-hunt. Arya swiped the keycard. The lock clicked. She pushed the doors open and stepped inside. The office was massive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the sprawling capital city of Lunaris, the lights twinkling like fallen stars. The desk, a behemoth of carved obsidian, dominated the center of the room. Bookshelves lined every wall, filled with ancient texts and artifacts that probably cost more than Arya would earn in 10 lifetimes. But it was the smell that struck her first. Sandalwood and smoke, mixed with something wild and untamed. It was intoxicating, masculine, dangerous. Focus, she told herself, shaking off the strange pull. She moved quickly to the cabinet Marcus had described, her fingers trembling as she unlocked it. Inside were rolls of yellowed parchment, sealed with wax emblems. She began carefully transferring them to her satchel. That's when she noticed it. Behind the king's desk hung a massive crimson curtain, velvet and heavy, concealing something. It didn't match the aesthetic of the room. It looked deliberate. Hidden. Arya knew she should leave. Every instinct screamed at her to grab the treaties and run. But curiosity, that damnable, dangerous curiosity, won. She approached the curtain, her footsteps silent on the plush carpet. Her hand reached out, fingers brushing the velvet. Don't. She pulled it aside. The secret that changed everything. Behind the curtain was a wall. But not just any wall, it was covered floor to ceiling with photographs, maps, and documents connected by red string like a detective's murder board. Aria's breath caught in her throat. At the center was a photograph of a woman. She was breathtakingly beautiful, with long dark hair and striking green eyes. But it was the notation beneath the photo that made Aria's blood run cold. Lyanna Winters. Status, deceased. Cause of death, execution by royal decree. Winters. Her last name. Arya stepped closer, her hands shaking. She scanned the other documents, birth certificates, bloodline charts, execution orders. And there, in bold red ink across one of the maps, was a single word that made her knees buckle. Heir. Looking for something? The voice came from behind her, deep, smooth, and laced with lethal calm. Arya spun around, her heart exploding in her chest. King Damian Blackthorne stood in the doorway of his office, filling the frame with his imposing presence. He was even more devastating in person than in the portraits. Tall, easily 6'5", with jet black hair that fell just past his collar and eyes the color of midnight. He wore a tailored black suit that did nothing to hide the raw power coiled beneath. But it was the expression on his face that terrified her. Not anger. Not surprise. Recognition. I was sent to retrieve treaties, Arya stammered, her voice barely a whisper. I didn't. You weren't supposed to be back until tomorrow, she blurted, then immediately regretted it. Damian's lips curved into something that might have been a smile if it wasn't so predatory. He stepped into the office, closing the doors behind him with a soft click. The sound echoed like a death knell. Plans change, he said, his gaze never leaving hers. And you, little archivist, have just made a very costly mistake. Arya backed up until her spine hit the wall of evidence. I swear I didn't see anything. I won't tell anyone. Please. Don't lie to me. His voice dropped to a growl that vibrated through her bones. He crossed the distance between them in 3 long strides, caging her against the wall with his arms. I can hear your heartbeat. I can smell your fear. And I can see in your eyes that you know exactly what you saw. Arya's breath came in short gasps. She was trapped, cornered by the most powerful man in the kingdom. A man who could kill her with a flick of his wrist. Who was she? Arya whispered, her eyes darting to the photograph of Lyanna Winters. Why does she have my last name? Damian's jaw clenched. Something flickered across his face, pain, perhaps, or regret. You really don't know, do you? Know what? He leaned in closer, his breath ghosting across her cheek. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible, but every word landed like a hammer blow. Lyanna Winters was your mother. And you, Arya, are the last living heir to the bloodborne line, the only bloodline that can challenge my claim to the throne. The world tilted. Arya's vision blurred. She couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. That's impossible, she choked out. I'm human. I don't have a wolf. I'm nobody. You're everything, Damian said, his eyes burning into hers. Your mother was executed 23 years ago for treason. You were hidden, smuggled out of the palace as an infant. And now, after all this time, you've walked right back into the lion's den. Arya's mind raced. Questions exploded in her head, each more terrifying than the last. Are you going to kill me? She asked, her voice breaking. Damian stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, deliberately, he reached up and traced a finger along her jawline. The touch was shockingly gentle, almost reverent. No, little heir, he murmured. I'm going to do something far more dangerous. What? His smile was dark, wicked, and utterly devastating. I'm going to make you mine. Forbidden romance and secrets. The deal with the Devil King. Arya couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. King Damien's words hung in the air like a noose tightening around her neck. I'm going to make you mine. What the hell did that even mean? You're insane, she whispered, her voice trembling. You killed my mother. You expect me to. I didn't kill your mother, Damien interrupted, his jaw clenched tight. He stepped back, running a hand through his dark hair in frustration. My father did. King Alaric executed Lyanna Winters on charges of treason when I was barely 18. I had no say in it. Arya's eyes narrowed. But you didn't stop it. I couldn't stop it. Damien's voice boomed through the office, making her flinch. He caught himself, the fury in his eyes banking down to something more controlled. I was the crown prince, not the king. My father ruled with an iron fist. Anyone who opposed him ended up dead, including his own son if he dared to interfere. The pain in his voice sounded genuine, but Arya didn't know if she could trust it. Trust him. Why didn't you tell anyone I existed, she demanded. Why let me rot in the archives as a nobody? Damien's expression darkened. Because the moment the council learns you're alive, you become a target. There are wolves in this kingdom who would cut your throat just to eliminate the bloodborne line forever. Others would use you as a puppet to overthrow me. He stepped closer again, his presence overwhelming. The only way to keep you alive is to bind you to me so completely that killing you would mean declaring war on the crown. Bind me? Arya's stomach twisted. What are you talking about? Damien's eyes gleamed with dangerous intent. You're going to become my queen. The impossible proposition. Arya laughed, a sharp, hysterical sound. You've lost your mind. I'm human. I can't shift. I have no pack, no title, no. You have a bloodline, Damien cut her off. The Bloodborne family ruled these lands for 3 centuries before my father staged his coup. Your blood is royal, Arya. More royal than mine, if we're being technical. Then why not just kill me and be done with it? Arya challenged, lifting her chin defiantly. Why go through this charade? Damien's gaze swept over her, slow and deliberate. When his eyes met hers again, there was something raw and hungry in them that made her pulse quicken. Because, he said softly, I've spent 5 years searching for you. 5 years wondering if the rumors were true, if Lyanna's daughter had survived. And now that you're standing in front of me, I realize something I didn't expect. What? He reached out and cupped her face, his thumb brushing across her lower lip. The touch sent electricity racing through her veins. I don't want you dead, Arya. I want you alive. I want you by my side. And whether you believe it or not, you want that too. Arya jerked her head away, anger flaring. You don't know what I want. Don't I? Damien's smile was wolfish. You've spent your entire life invisible, overlooked, treated like dirt. But deep down, you've always known you were meant for more. You felt it, didn't you? That restlessness. That hunger for something greater. Damn him. He was right. This isn't a request, is it? Arya asked bitterly. No, Damien admitted. It's not. You have 2 choices, accept my protection and become my queen, or refuse and I'll have no choice but to lock you in the palace dungeons for your own safety. Either way, you're not leaving this building. Arya's hands clenched into fists. That's not a choice. That's a prison sentence. Then choose the prison with a crown, Damien said smoothly. At least that one comes with power. The first kiss of claiming. Before Arya could respond, Damien moved. He pulled her against him, one hand fisting in her hair, the other gripping her waist. His mouth crashed down on hers in a kiss that was anything but gentle. It was possession. Domination. A claiming. Arya's mind screamed at her to fight, to push him away. But her body, traitorous, foolish body, melted into him. The kiss was fire and fury, igniting something primal deep in her core. She gasped against his mouth, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until she couldn't think, couldn't resist. When he finally pulled back, they were both breathing hard. "You feel that?" Damien growled against her lips. "That's not hatred, little heir. That's destiny." Arya's cheeks burned with shame and something far more dangerous. "You're a monster." "Maybe," Damien agreed, releasing her slowly. "But I'm your monster now. Get used to it." He turned and walked back to his desk, composing himself with infuriating ease. "You'll move into the Queen's chambers tonight. My staff will prepare everything. In 3 days, we'll announce our engagement to the council." 3 days? Arya's voice cracked. "You expect me to just—" "I expect you to survive," Damien said coldly. "Because the moment word spreads that you're alive, every enemy I've ever made will come for you. The only way you live through this is if you play your part perfectly." Arya sank into the chair behind her, her legs finally giving out. "What have I gotten myself into?" Damien's expression softened, just slightly. "A war, Arya. One that's been brewing for 23 years. But if we play this right, we won't just survive it. We'll win it." The midnight visitor. That night, Arya lay awake in the most opulent bedroom she'd ever seen. The Queen's chambers were a masterpiece of luxury: silk sheets, a canopy bed, and a balcony overlooking the moonlit gardens. But she felt like a prisoner in a gilded cage. A soft knock at the balcony doors made her bolt upright. A figure stood outside, cloaked in shadows. Arya's heart raced as she approached cautiously. When she opened the doors, a woman stepped inside, tall, elegant, with silver hair and piercing violet eyes. "You must be the new plaything," the woman said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Who are you?" Arya demanded. The woman smiled coldly. "I'm Seraphina Nightshade, Damien's former fiancée. And I'm here to give you some advice, little human." Arya's blood ran cold. "I didn't ask for your advice." "You're going to get it anyway," Seraphina hissed, stepping closer. "Damien may have claimed you, but he doesn't love you. He's using you, just like he used me, just like he uses everyone. And when he's done, you'll be discarded like yesterday's trash." "Get out," Arya said, her voice shaking. Seraphina laughed. "Enjoy your crown while it lasts, sweetheart. Because the council meeting in 3 days? It's not an engagement announcement." "Then what is it?" Seraphina's smile turned vicious. "It's your execution trial. Damien's setting you up to take the fall for crimes you didn't commit. He's going to sacrifice you to secure his throne." Before Arya could respond, Seraphina vanished over the balcony, leaving only the scent of poison and lies. Arya stood frozen, her mind reeling. Was Damien truly protecting her? Or was she just a pawn in a game far deadlier than she'd imagined? The ultimate power and revenge. The Council of Wolves. The morning of the council meeting arrived like an executioner's blade, swift, cold, and unforgiving. Arya stood before the massive gilded mirror in her chambers, barely recognizing the woman staring back at her. The gown Damien had sent was breathtaking, midnight blue silk that hugged her curves before flowing to the floor like liquid shadow. Diamonds glittered at her throat and wrists, cold and heavy as chains. Her dark hair had been swept up into an elegant twist, revealing the graceful column of her neck. She looked like a queen. She felt like a sacrifice. Stunning, Damien's voice came from the doorway, making her jump. He entered without permission, dressed in a black suit with silver threading that caught the light. He looked every inch the Alpha King, powerful, dangerous, untouchable. "Is it true?" Arya asked, turning to face him. "What Seraphina said. Are you using me?" Damien's expression darkened. "Seraphina came to see you?" "Answer the question," Arya demanded, surprised by the strength in her own voice. "Is this council meeting a trial? Are you planning to sacrifice me? For a long moment, Damien said nothing. Then he crossed the room in 3 strides and gripped her shoulders, his golden eyes burning into hers. Listen to me very carefully, he growled. Serafina is a viper who will say anything to destabilize my rule. Yes, there will be council members who want you dead. Yes, they will call for your execution. But I didn't bring you this far to watch you die. Then what's your plan? Arya whispered. Damien's hand slid down her arms, his touch both gentle and possessive. Trust me. That's all I'm asking. When we walk into that chamber, you hold your head high. You show them the queen you were born to be. And when the time comes, you follow my lead. Can you do that? Arya wanted to say no. Wanted to run. But something in his eyes, a fierce protectiveness mixed with something deeper, made her nod. Good, Damien said softly. He leaned in and pressed a kiss to her forehead, the gesture surprisingly tender. Let's go remind them who really holds the power in this kingdom. The Chamber of Judgment. The Grand Council chamber was a circular stone amphitheater lined with marble columns. 50 council members, alphas from every territory in the kingdom, sat in elevated seats forming a semicircle. At the center stood 2 thrones, one for the king and one empty. Waiting for her. Arya's legs trembled as she walked down the aisle on Damien's arm. Every eye in the room tracked her movement. She could feel their judgment, their hatred, their hunger for her blood. Damien led her to the empty throne and seated her with deliberate care before taking his own seat. The message was clear, she was his equal. The council erupted in outrage. This is an abomination, roared Alpha Cornelius, a grizzled wolf with a scar running down his face. A human sitting on the queen's throne? Have you lost your mind, Damien? I have never been more clear-headed, Damien replied calmly. Allow me to introduce Arya Winters, daughter of Lyanna Winters and the last surviving heir of the Bloodborne dynasty. The chamber exploded. Shouts of disbelief, anger, and fear echoed off the stone walls. The Bloodborne line was extinguished, shouted another alpha. King Alaric made sure of it. Clearly, he didn't, Damien said coldly. Arya is living proof. And according to the old laws, the Bloodborne family has rightful claim to the throne, a claim that supersedes my own. The room fell deathly silent. Arya's heart pounded. What was he doing? However, Damien continued, standing and extending his hand to Arya. I propose a solution that honors both bloodlines. Arya Winters will become my queen. Our union will merge the Blackthorn and Bloodborne houses, ending centuries of conflict and creating a new dynasty. Unacceptable. Alpha Serafina's father, Lord Nightshade, rose from his seat. His violet eyes blazed with fury. This girl is an untested human with no wolf, no training, no loyalty to the kingdom. She could be a spy, an imposter. Then test her, Damien said simply. Lord Nightshade smiled viciously. Very well. I invoke the trial of blood, an ancient rite that will prove whether she carries true bloodborne heritage or if she's a fraud. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the council. Arya leaned toward Damien. What's the trial of blood? She whispered urgently. Damien's jaw clenched. A ritual that forces dormant wolf DNA to activate. If you're truly bloodborne, you'll shift. If not, I'll die, Arya finished, her blood turning to ice. The Awakening. The ritual took place in the center of the chamber. Arya was led to a circular stone platform carved with ancient runes. Council members formed a ring around her, chanting in a language she didn't understand. Lord Nightshade approached carrying a silver chalice filled with dark liquid that smelled of copper and earth. Drink, he commanded, and let your blood reveal the truth. Arya looked at Damien. He stood at the edge of the circle, his fists clenched, his expression tortured. He couldn't help her now. This was something she had to face alone. She took the chalice and drank. The liquid burned like fire down her throat. She gasped, doubling over as pain exploded through her body. It felt like her bones were breaking, her skin tearing, her very cells rearranging themselves. "She's dying," someone shouted. "No," Damien's voice cut through the chaos. "She's changing." Arya screamed as power, ancient, primal, and devastating, surged through her veins. Her vision sharpened. Her senses exploded. She could hear every heartbeat in the room, smell every drop of fear and anticipation. And then she felt it. The wolf inside her, dormant for 23 years, finally waking up. Light erupted from Arya's body, not the silver glow of a normal wolf, but pure liquid gold. The entire chamber was bathed in its radiance. When the light faded, Arya stood in the center of the platform, transformed. Her wolf was magnificent, larger than any female wolf the council had ever seen, with fur the color of moonlight and eyes that burned with golden fire. The bloodborne wolf. The symbol of royal power. The council fell to their knees. The queen's revenge. Arya shifted back to human form, her body covered by the cloak Damien threw over her shoulders. She stood tall, no longer the frightened archivist. She was a queen. A wolf. A force of nature. "The trial is complete," Damien announced, his voice ringing with pride. "Arya Winters is confirmed as bloodborne. And as of this moment, she is under my protection as my chosen queen." "We accept," Lord Nightshade said through gritted teeth, though his eyes promised murder. But Arya had her own announcement to make. "Before we conclude," she said, her voice steady and commanding, "I have something to say." The council looked at her in surprise. Arya turned to face them all. "For 23 years, I was hidden. Erased. Made to believe I was worthless. But I've learned something in these past days, the truth always comes out. And there are people in this room who don't want me alive because I threaten their power, their schemes, their corruption." She locked eyes with Lord Nightshade. "Including those who were complicit in my mother's execution, not because she committed treason, but because she discovered evidence of their embezzlement from the royal treasury." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Damien stepped forward, producing a folder of documents. "Arya and I have spent the last 3 days investigating. We have proof that Lord Nightshade, Alpha Cornelius, and 6 other council members conspired to frame Lyanna Winters and steal millions from the kingdom's coffers." "Lies!" Lord Nightshade roared. "Then explain these," Damien said coldly, projecting financial records onto the chamber walls. "Offshore accounts. Forged signatures. All traced back to you." The evidence was damning. Within minutes, royal guards surrounded the guilty council members. Arya approached Lord Nightshade, her golden eyes glowing. "You killed my mother to protect your greed. You tried to kill me to keep your secrets buried. But the bloodborne line doesn't die easily." She leaned in close. "Enjoy the dungeons. It's where traitors belong." The coronation. 1 month later, Arya stood beside Damien on the palace balcony, wearing a crown of gold and diamonds. Below, thousands of citizens cheered for their new king and queen. Damien took her hand, lacing their fingers together. "Any regrets?" Arya smiled, a real, genuine smile. "Not a single one." He pulled her close and kissed her, claiming her in front of the entire kingdom. And this time Arya kissed him back with all the fire in her soul. She had been thrown away, hidden, erased. But she rose like a phoenix from the ashes. And now, she ruled. The end.